I knew I was in trouble the second she opened the door. Not because of the rent, though I was, again, late, but because she looked at me like she already knew what I was about to say. The kind of look that cuts straight through excuses. Mrs. Hale leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, dark hair falling in loose waves over her sweater. She wasn't glamorous in a way you'd see in movies. There was something sharper, lived in, more dangerous about her beauty. "You're late again," she said. Not loud. Just certain. I shifted my weight, trying to keep my voice steady. "I know. Don't tell me you're working on it. You said that last month." Behind her, the hallway light was soft and golden, spilling over stacks of books and a potted plant that had grown wild. Her apartment smelled faintly of coffee, even though it was nearly evening. I wanted to explain how work hours got cut, how I was waiting for a check that never came, but my throat felt tight. Instead, I just said, "Maybe I can work it off." That made her pause. Just for a second, but I saw it, the way her eyes narrowed, then softened. "What do you mean?" I shrugged, keeping it casual, though my pulse was hammering. "Repairs, painting, whatever you need around here. I'm decent with tools. You wouldn't have to wait on the super." Her gaze drifted over me, not in a way that made me blush, but in a way that made me stand still, like she was taking inventory. I thought she was going to say no, but then she stepped back. "Fine," she said. "There's a loose cabinet in the kitchen. Come in." I followed her inside, careful not to look around too much, but noticing anyway, the small things that felt personal. A half-drunk glass of water on the counter. A cardigan draped over the back of a chair. Music low in the background, something soft and slow. The cabinet was hanging a little off its hinge, an easy fix. I found the tools in a drawer without her telling me, which made her raise an eyebrow. "You've been in my kitchen before?" "Once," I admitted. "When you asked me to help bring in groceries. You were on the phone." She didn't answer right away. Just leaned against the counter, watching as I tightened the screws. The air between us felt heavier than it should have for such a simple job. "You always this quick to offer free labor?" she asked. I smirked. "Only when I like the landlord." Her lips pressed together, but I caught the smallest curve at the corner. The job took less than 5 minutes, but neither of us moved right after I finished. I set the screwdriver down, and for a moment, we just stood there, too close, the faint hum of the refrigerator filling the space. Then she reached past me for the glass of water. Her arm brushed mine, light as a whisper. I felt it all the way down. "Maybe there's more around here that needs fixing," she said. I should have looked away. Should have stepped back. But I didn't. I just watched her take a sip, the air between us charged with something we hadn't named yet. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at the screen, then at me, and her voice was lower now. "Lock the door." I locked the door without asking why. The click of the bolt sounded too loud in the quiet kitchen. She didn't look up right away, just kept sipping her water like nothing had shifted. But something had. Mrs. Hale wasn't just my landlady. She'd been married up until last winter. I'd heard pieces of the story through the walls, in muffled arguments, and the sound of slammed doors. One day he was there, the next he wasn't. I never asked, but I noticed the way she avoided the mailbox for weeks after. Now she was leaning on the counter, the sleeve of her sweater pushed back, exposing the inside of her wrist, pale, with the faintest trace of blue veins. I found myself staring too long, imagining what her pulse might feel like. "You fixed that faster than I expected," she said, setting the glass down. "Most people don't even notice things like that." I shrugged, trying to hide the fact that I noticed everything about her. The chipped nail polish. The way she never tied her hair back unless she was stressed. How she had this tiny freckle on the side of her neck I'd seen once when she tilted her head to laugh. "This feels off limits, doesn't it?" she asked suddenly. I froze. "What does?" She smiled faintly, but there was no humor in it. "You. Me. This." Her hand waved between us, like she could draw the invisible line I was already stepping over. I wanted to tell her it didn't feel wrong, it felt inevitable. But my mouth stayed shut. She looked at me for a long moment, and I swear I could hear her breathing over the hum of the fridge. Then softer. "I don't think I've let anyone else in here since." She didn't finish the sentence. I swallowed hard. "Since him?" Her eyes flickered, just for a second. "Something like that." She turned away, busying herself with straightening the mail on the counter, but I could see her shoulders tense. I wanted to ask why she'd let me in, why tonight, but I was afraid of the answer. Instead, I leaned against the other side of the counter, watching her. "I can stay longer, if you've got more that needs doing." She glanced over her shoulder, eyebrow raised. "You offering because you want to help, or because you're avoiding something else?" That caught me off guard. "Can it be both?" Her lips curved, almost approvingly. She stepped closer, just enough that I could smell her perfume, something faint and warm, like cedar and vanilla. My chest tightened. "You missed a screw," she said softly, tapping the cabinet behind me. But she didn't move past me to fix it. Instead, her fingers brushed my arm, lingering just a second too long. I should have stepped back. I didn't. "Stay," she said. I told myself I was staying because of the cabinet. Because she said so. Not because I wanted to see what happened if I didn't leave. Mrs. Hale pulled open another cupboard, muttering something about a loose hinge, but her voice was softer now, like we were speaking under someone else's roof. I stepped in to look, and our shoulders brushed. "You've got a habit of standing too close," she said, not moving away. "You've got a habit of letting me." I shot back before I could think. Her eyes lifted to mine, and for a second, the air in the room felt too heavy to breathe. She reached up to point out the hinge, her sweater slipping down just enough to reveal the curve of her shoulder. I wanted to touch it. I didn't. Instead, I busied myself with the screwdriver, trying to pretend my pulse wasn't in my throat. Then her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her jaw tightened. Without answering, she flipped it face down on the counter. "You're not going to, no," she cut in. "Not right now." There was something in her tone, clipped, final, that made me want to know who it was. Maybe the ex. Maybe someone else. "Doesn't matter," she said when she caught me looking. But it clearly did. I bent back to the hinge, trying to focus, but the quiet between us was loaded now. I could feel her watching me. I knew if I looked up, I'd see something in her face I wasn't ready to name. "Why'd you really offer to work off the rent?" she asked suddenly. I tightened the last screw. "Because you were going to say no if I didn't give you a reason to keep me around." She didn't answer right away. Then she stepped closer, close enough that the scent of her skin and the faint warmth of her body made it impossible to keep pretending I wasn't here for more than the work. "I don't usually let people in like this," she said, her voice dipping low. "Not since." She stopped herself, looking away. I wanted to say I understood. That she didn't have to explain. But instead I said, "I'm not most people." That made her turn back. Slowly. A knock came at the door. She froze. Neither of us moved. The knock came again, louder this time. "Don't answer," she whispered. My chest tightened. "You sure?" Her hand brushed mine on the counter, not an accident this time. "I'm sure," she said, eyes locked on mine. We stayed like that, the knock fading, the hum of the fridge filling the silence, and I swear, If she had leaned in just an inch closer, the line we hadn't crossed yet would have disappeared. The knock had stopped, but neither of us moved away. Her hand was still close enough to mine that I could feel the ghost of her touch. She didn't seem in any hurry to pull back. "You should get going," she said finally. But her voice was too soft, like she didn't believe her own words. "You want me to?" I asked. She exhaled, the kind of breath that sounded like it had been held for too long. "That's not the point." "Then what is?" Her eyes found mine, and this time she didn't look away. "The point is, this isn't supposed to happen." My chest tightened. "You think I don't know that?" A flicker of something crossed her face, not anger, not exactly. More like recognition. "Then why are you still here?" I could have said the rent, the work, the hinges. But none of that would have been true. "Because every time I leave, I think about the next excuse to come back." Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't speak. The silence between us wasn't empty, it was full, pressing in from every side. She set her glass down carefully, like it might break if she held it any longer. "I'm not in a place for this," she murmured. "I'm not asking for a place," I said. I can't seem to stop wanting to be near you." Her gaze dropped to the counter, then back up, sharp and searching. "Do you know what that would mean? For me?" I nodded. "Do you know what it already means for me?" For a moment, her expression softened, almost like she might reach for me. Then the door buzzer went off, loud, jarring, cutting straight through the moment. She flinched, glancing toward the door but making no move to answer. "Ignore it." I hesitated. "What if it's important?" Her eyes locked on mine, steady, unblinking. "It's not more important than this." That landed in my chest like a stone. My pulse roared in my ears. I stepped forward without thinking, closing the gap between us until the space left was barely the width of a breath. She didn't move back. Her hand lifted, not to touch me, but to hover just shy of my jaw. "Tell me this is a bad idea," she whispered. I could feel the heat from her skin, the faint tremor in her fingers. My voice caught before I could answer. "If I said that, I'd be lying." We stood there, the hum of the fridge and the faint rain against the window the only sounds. Her hand dropped slowly, like she'd decided something. Then she asked, so quietly I almost missed it, "What happens if we don't stop?" Her question, "What happens if we don't stop?" was still hanging in the air when she stepped back, just far enough to break the pull between us. "You need to know something," she said. Her tone had changed, not cold, but heavier, like she was bracing for my reaction. I nodded, waiting. "That man who keeps calling? Knocking?" She hesitated. "It's not my ex." The answer I'd been expecting died in my throat. "Then who? My son's father," she said. He thinks he can just show up again." I blinked, trying to make sense of it. "You have a son?" Her eyes flicked to mine, and for the first time since I'd met her, she looked almost defensive. "Had," she corrected quietly. The weight of the word hit before I could stop it. I opened my mouth, closed it, then finally said, "I didn't know. You weren't supposed to." Her voice was steady now, but her hands were restless, twisting the hem of her sweater. "It's not something I hand out like a fact on a form. It's a part of me I keep locked away." I wanted to say I understood, but I didn't. Not fully. Still, something about the way she stood there, guarded but breaking, made my chest ache. "Is that why you keep people out?" I asked. Her laugh was short, sharp. "No. I keep people out because I know what it's like to lose them." The room felt smaller, like her words had drawn the walls in closer. I stepped toward her, slower this time. "You think pushing me away will make it hurt less?" She shook her head, almost smiling but not quite. No. I think letting you in will make it hurt more. Before I could answer, the buzzer went off again, louder this time, like whoever was outside knew she was ignoring them. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't move toward the door. That's him, she said. He doesn't leave until he gets what he wants. And what is that? I asked. Her eyes stayed on mine. Control. I felt my hands ball into fists without meaning to. You want me to go? Her gaze didn't waver. No. I want you to stay. The buzzer stopped. Silence settled in, heavier than before. That changes things, I said. It should, she replied. But I think it's already too late for that. For the first time all night, I saw her walls crack, just for a heartbeat. And it was enough to make me realize this wasn't just about rent, or a loose hinge, or the pull between us. It was about the fact that we were both already in deeper than we'd planned, and neither of us had a map for where it went next. The silence after the buzzer faded felt almost unreal, like we were standing in a space outside of time. Mrs. Hale leaned against the counter, arms folded, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. She wasn't looking at me now, she was looking at the floor, like the answer to everything might be written in the wood grain. I shouldn't want this, she said quietly. I know, I said. She finally looked up, her eyes sharp. Then why do you? I hesitated, but there was no point in lying. Because you make everything else fade. The noise, the stress, the crap I can't fix, all of it. When I'm here, it's just you. Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. And maybe it's selfish, I continued. Maybe it's wrong. But I'd rather risk this than keep pretending I don't feel it. Her jaw tightened, and I thought she might tell me to leave. Instead, she stepped closer, not all the way, just enough that I could see the faint tremor in her hands. You think I don't feel it? She asked. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. You've been under my skin since the first time you knocked on my door. I kept telling myself I could manage it, keep it in its box. But you, her voice faltered. You keep finding the cracks. I swallowed, my pulse quickening. So what now? She looked at me for a long moment, then let her arms drop to her sides. Now we stop pretending this isn't happening. It was the smallest movement, her fingers brushing mine, but it felt like the ground shifted beneath us. I turned my hand over, letting her palm rest against mine. Her breath caught, and for a moment neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, If I let you in, really in, you don't get to walk away when it's hard. I nodded. Then I guess I'm not walking away. That made her eyes soften, and for the first time tonight, the tension between us felt less like a cliff edge and more like a bridge. The rain outside had picked up, tapping against the window. She stepped in fully now, closing the last inches between us until her forehead rested lightly against mine. This is going to change everything, she murmured. I let out a shaky breath. Good. I'm tired of everything staying the same. For a few seconds, we just stood there, the hum of the fridge and the rain the only witnesses. And then her hand tightened on mine, not pulling me closer, not pushing me away, just holding on. The rain slowed by the time we moved to the couch. Neither of us said much, we didn't have to. The air felt different now, settled, like the tension that had been coiling tighter and tighter all night had finally loosened. Mrs. Hale sat beside me, legs tucked under her, her sweater sleeves pulled down over her hands. I noticed she'd stopped fidgeting. That constant edge in her posture had softened. You're still here, she said finally. I smiled faintly. Told you I wasn't walking away. She looked at me for a moment, then nodded like she'd been testing me and I'd passed. People always leave. Or worse, they stay until it's inconvenient. I'm not them. Her gaze held mine a second longer, and in it, I could see something I hadn't before: trust, tentative but real. It wasn't the fiery pull from earlier, it was steadier, quieter. We talked for a while after that, not about the rent, or the cabinet, or even the man at the door. She told me about her son in halting pieces, the way you might hand someone a fragile photograph. I didn't ask for more than she was ready to give. I just listened. Somewhere in between, I realized the power between us had shifted. This wasn't about who was older, who was in charge, who had the keys. It was about the fact that we'd both been carrying things too heavy to name, and tonight, we'd started putting some of it down. By the time I stood to leave, the storm had stopped completely. She followed me to the door, her hand brushing mine again, not accidental this time. "So," she said, "when will you be back?" I grinned. "Soon enough to check if that hinge is still holding." She shook her head, but I saw the small, unguarded smile before she looked away. At the door, she hesitated. "You know this isn't going to be simple, right?" "I'm not looking for simple," I said. "I'm looking for this." Her eyes softened, and for a heartbeat, it felt like everything outside her apartment had gone quiet again. When I stepped into the hall, I caught one last look at her leaning against the doorframe. Not guarded, not hiding. Just there. And I knew whatever came next, we'd already chosen it. Because tonight wasn't about crossing a line, it was about erasing it. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?